This might be the best pair of twin films, or should I say triplets. What makes this so fascinating is that twin films are typically described as two movies with similar plots released around the same time by two different studios. This time there are three of them, and all three were released by Columbia Pictures, but more on that later. In 1964, we got two movies involving accidental nuclear warfare, and both films were directed by two of the greatest filmmakers of all time. The difference is that Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, is a satire, and Sidney Lumet's Failsafe is a thriller. Dr. Strangelove is an adaptation of Peter George's 1958 novel Red Alert, but when Kubrick adapted novels, he changed them quite a bit. So Red Alert wasn't really a comedy, and there was no Dr. Strangelove in it, but Peter George co-wrote the screenplay with Kubrick. Meanwhile, Failsafe is an adaptation of Eugene Burdick and Harvey Wheeler's 1962 novel of the same name. Since the plot of Failsafe was so similar to George's novel, he and Kubrick sued the producers of Failsafe for copyright infringement. The case was settled out of court. Columbia Pictures, which already financed and was distributing Dr. Strangelove, then bought Failsafe, and Kubrick insisted that his film be released first. One of my sources about this was the book Command and Control by Eric Schlosser, and he goes on to say that Dr. Strangelove is the more authentic of the two, which is funny because I thought Failsafe seemed more realistic, so I guess that just shows how little I know about nuclear warfare. But I think both of these movies are masterpieces. I genuinely can't pick a favorite. They have such wildly different tones, so I think they'd make a great double feature. But if I were to do a double feature, I wouldn't know where to start, because part of me thinks it's best to start with Failsafe because it's so suspenseful and anxiety-inducing, it almost feels like a horror movie, and then after you'd get the comedic relief of Dr. Strangelove. But Failsafe is so intense that I don't know if anyone would want to watch another movie about the same topic right after watching it. And if you want to do a triple feature, you can add the 1965 film The Bedford Incident, directed by James B. Harris. This was Harris's directorial debut. Prior to that, he was a producer and produced three of Kubrick's films, The Killing, Paths of Glory, and Lolita. But Kubrick and Harris's partnership came to an end because Kubrick wanted to make Dr. Strangelove a satire instead of a thriller, and Harris wanted to make a serious film about the topic. The two stayed friends, though, and Harris went on to make his own film, The Bedford Incident, which is another Cold War thriller. All three movies were distributed by Columbia Pictures. Gilbert Taylor was the cinematographer for both Dr. Strangelove and The Bedford Incident, and at least 6 of the same actors appear in both Dr. Strangelove and The Bedford Incident. Honestly, all three of these films are fantastic, and they all have great casts. Dr. Strangelove stars Peter Sellers in 3 different roles. Henry Fonda is the star of Failsafe, and The Bedford Incident stars Richard Widmark and Sidney Poitier. And this was one of Donald Sutherland's earliest movies. But let me know which movie is your favorite of the 3, Dr. Strangelove, Failsafe, or The Bedford Incident.